Right, one of the most difficult things for a painter to achieve is that neat straight line against architriving or skirting board, or where the ceiling meets the wall and you're using two different colours. Not only is it difficult, what makes it worse is one of the things that people notice as well if you get wrong. It looks really messy. Now, there really are, for those who are learning to paint, two ways of achieving this nice finish, this neat straight line, which professionals call cutting in. Now, you can either use masking tape, so you can basically paint over it and kind of, just make a mess and then peel the masking tape off afterwards. But the problem with that is that some masking tapes will leave you a little bit of bleed. The paint will go in behind the masking tape and leave this kind of fuzzy edge, which doesn't look at all good. Or on occasions, if you're using masking tape on a wallpaper, you'll actually peel the wallpaper off, then you've got a big problem. Now, there's a bit of a trade secret when it comes to cutting in. The professionals know that we DIYers don't. They'll use a well-worn-in brush. They call it broken in. And it's a process very similar to a fountain pen. As the more you use it, the more it kind of evolves to your hand. It'll feel so natural and easy to write with. That's exactly the way a professional will feel about a well-worn-in brush. And here's one. We've prized this out of the hands of a professional painter that we know, and it's really well worn in. Both in that direction, look, you've got that angle, and in that direction as well. So not only will that brush be really easy to use when cutting in, it'll give you a lovely, easy to achieve neat line. It'll actually give you a lovely, they call it laying off finish as well. Avoid all those brush strokes that you sometimes see on, on amateurs paint work. Now, conversely, if you go to a store and buy a brand new brush, it'll generally come out pretty square. The way it's made, it'll be square in that angle, in that plane, and also in that one. Now, naturally, you'd assume that that would be quite straightforward to achieve a nice finish with. But the irony is that's not the way to get a nice, neat line. The way to achieve a nice, neat line is to pull the brush sideways on, that way on, and distribute the paint in that lovely, neat, straight line that we're trying to achieve. It's much easier with a product like this than it is with a product like this, much easier. And that's the trade secret that we're going to try and teach you. Now, one other thing is, you may think, why not just buy a brush like this and wear it in yourself? That's fine, except a professional painter and decorator will be using that brush every day, day in, day out. It'll take a professional painter a long time to break a bristle brush in. But a synthetic brush, which most brushes are these days, is much more durable. It'll take 6 to 8 times longer to break in a synthetic brush, and that could be as long for a DIY as 20 years of use. So you can see there's a real problem there, because we DIYers are never going to get a brush at optimum usability in the way that a pro does. But we've got a solution for that. Now, this brush has been pre-worn in. It's made ready to be used, as opposed to a brush like this, which really needs to be worn in by the user, and it'll take, as I've said, 20 years or so to wear a brush in at a DIY rate to this level, because this synthetic filament is really durable. Great in one way, bad in another. So this brush comes into its own, as I've said, when you're cutting in, but not only that, it'll give a wonderful finish as well, because of the very smooth tips that the wearing in process gives when you go for the laying off stroke. That's the final stroke where the brush meets the paint on the final time and eradicates all those lines, leaves you with a lovely smooth finish. So let me show you how a new brush would perform when used against an architriving. This is not the way to paint against an edge surface. This is the way to paint when you're trying to achieve maximum coverage. When you're going for a cutting in process, what you're trying to achieve is maximum delivery of paint, so the brush is used on its edge like this. The problem being with a new brush, as soon as it makes contact with the surface, all the filament that sits on this corner here bunches up and creates a vectored surface like this, a vectored brush shape, and that's very difficult to use to achieve a flat, straight line. Whereas a brush like this, the corner simply isn't there, it's been worn away. So as soon as that brush makes contact with the surface, you've got a lovely flat edge with which to achieve that really long, straight, neat line. And so that's where a brush like this really wins out over an unbroken in one like this, and why the professionals get a much better finish consistently than we amateurs do. That's the trick of the trade.